Modern psychology puts heavy emphasis on feeling your feelings. Do not suppress them, do not run from them, name them, let them move through you. This is good advice as far as it goes, and Viktor Frankl would not have disagreed with it. But he thought it was only half the work. The other half, often neglected, is the uniquely human capacity to step back from what you are experiencing and observe it, to create a small distance between who you are and what is currently happening inside you. Frankl called this self-distancing, and he considered it one of the two essential capacities that separate human beings from the rest of the animal world. An animal is identical with its states. When a dog is afraid, the dog is afraid, without remainder. There is no part of the dog standing off to the side observing the fear, wondering what to make of it, deciding how to respond. Human beings have this extra dimension. We can be afraid, and simultaneously notice that we are afraid, and reflect on the fear, and in that reflection something opens up. The fear does not disappear, but it stops being the whole of what we are. We are bigger than it. This capacity sounds simple, almost trivial, until you realize how much of human suffering comes from the failure to use it. When anger swallows you whole, you become the anger. When anxiety fills the entire field of consciousness, there is nothing outside it to look back from. Self-distancing is the reclaiming of the observer position. It is the small inner step that says, yes, this fear is happening, and I am the one noticing it, and the noticing is not itself the fear. Frankl was clear that self-distancing is not the same as suppression. Suppression tries to push the feeling away. Self-distancing makes room for the feeling to be there while also being seen. Suppression says, I should not feel this. Self-distancing says, I am feeling this, and there is also someone here who is feeling it. The difference sounds abstract, but in practice it is enormous. A suppressed feeling accumulates pressure and eventually bursts. A self-distanced feeling loses its grip and often passes on its own, because it has been acknowledged rather than fought. It is also not the same as detachment or dissociation. Dissociation is a break in the self, a protective mechanism that numbs the feeling by cutting you off from your own experience. Self-distancing is the opposite. It requires you to stay in contact with what you are feeling, but from a slightly wider vantage point. You are not leaving the room. You are opening a window in it. Frankl gave a striking example from his time in the camps. Prisoners who could find a moment of humor, even a small one, even about their own situation, were exercising self-distancing. They were stepping back from the horror enough to register its absurdity, and in that stepping back they were preserving something of themselves that the conditions were trying to destroy. Humor, Frankl insisted, is one of the most accessible forms of self-distancing available to human beings, and it is often a more reliable sign of mental health than solemnity. A person who can find something faintly ridiculous in their own suffering has already begun to be free of it. This is connected to Frankl's notion of the defiant power of the spirit. The spirit, in his vocabulary, is the dimension in you that can say no to what is happening inside your own body and mind. It is not the body that says no to fatigue. It is not the mind, pulled by its own moods, that says no to despair. It is something further back, something uniquely human, that can look at even the body and mind and choose a different relationship to them. Self-distancing is the everyday exercise of this capacity. The practical applications are wide. Self-distancing is at the core of Frankl's technique of paradoxical intention, where an anxious patient is instructed to deliberately wish for the very symptom they fear. The wishing creates instant distance from a symptom, and the symptom often dissolves because it requires your earnest identification with the fear in order to maintain itself. It is also at the core of dereflection, where excessive self-observation is redirected outward. In both cases, the lever is the same. A small inner shift that puts a little space between you and your states, and the entire dynamic changes. In ordinary life, self-distancing is the difference between being reactive and being responsive. The reactive person is identical with their emotional state. The responsive person feels the emotion, registers it, and then chooses an action that takes the feeling into account without being enslaved by it. Frankl believed this small gap was the doorway to human freedom. The gap is always available, but it requires practice to find under pressure. The more you notice it in low-stakes moments, the more reliably it appears in high-stakes ones. Eventually the capacity becomes something like a stance. You live inside your experience without being dissolved into it. You are not merely happening to yourself. You are also present to what is happening, and that presence is already the beginning of freedom. Subscribe to the Psychology of Viktor Frankl to explore more of his timeless ideas.